Commander HFY stood before the Galactic Military Council, his four arms crossed in disgust. The massive holographic display behind him showed a simple metal tube with a wooden handle. The assembled representatives from 12 different species stared at the image with expressions ranging from confusion to outright mockery. "This," HFY announced, his voice dripping with disdain, "is what the humans call a baseball bat. According to our intelligence reports, they consider this a weapon." A ripple of laughter echoed through the chamber. Admiral Court-Th, a towering Regelian with crystalline skin, raised one of his massive hands. "Commander, surely you jest. That primitive stick couldn't harm a juvenile Galaxian, let alone pose any threat to our forces." HFY's compound eyes glittered with amusement. "My thoughts exactly, Admiral. Our xenobiological studies indicate that humans are among the weakest species we've encountered. Their bone density is pathetic, their muscle mass laughable, and their reflexes are slower than most prey animals. Yet they somehow believe this crude implement makes them formidable." High Counselor Vexera, her serpentine form coiled elegantly around her council seat, spoke with the wisdom of her 700 years. "Perhaps we should not dismiss any species so quickly. Remember the Korathi incident." "The Korathi were at least using energy weapons," scoffed General Brixton, his insectoid mandibles clicking with derision. "These humans swing wooden sticks." Wooden sticks? In an age of plasma cannons and molecular disruptors, they cling to organic matter like primitive savages. The intelligence officer, a slim Centaurian named Agent Salek, stepped forward. His blue-tinted skin seemed to shimmer under the council chamber's lights. "If I may, honored council members, our observations suggest there may be more to this than meets the eye." "Explain," Counselor Vexera commanded. Salek activated his personal holopad, displaying footage from a human recreational facility. "We've been monitoring human activities for the past cycle. They engage in ritualistic combat, using these implements against small white spheres. The physics involved should be impossible for creatures of their limited strength." The footage showed humans swinging the wooden implements with tremendous force, sending small white balls flying at incredible speeds. The assembled council watched as one human struck a ball that soared through the air for nearly 500 meters before landing. "Computer analysis indicates the ball achieved velocities exceeding 200 kilometers per hour, Salek reported. "For a species with such apparent physical limitations, this seems unusual." General Brixton's mandibles stopped clicking. "What's the mass differential between their projectile and their body weight?" "The ball weighs approximately 145 grams. The average human male weighs roughly 80 kilograms. The ratio of projectile mass to body mass is incredibly small, yet they generate enormous kinetic energy transfer." Admiral Court-Th leaned forward, his crystalline features reflecting the holographic display. "Show us more footage." Salek complied, displaying dozens of examples. Humans of various sizes and ages wielding these simple implements with devastating effect. Children barely reaching adult knee height could send the small spheres flying with surprising force. Elderly humans with obvious physical limitations could still generate impressive velocities. "There's something else," Salek continued. "They've developed variants of this weapon system. Longer versions, shorter versions, different materials, different weights. They call them by names like Louisville Slugger, Softball Bat, and Cricket Bat. Each variant appears optimized for specific combat scenarios." The laughter in the chamber had died completely. The council members studied the footage with growing unease. "What's their range capability?" asked Counselor Vexera. "With optimal conditions and skilled operators, they can project these spheres up to 600 meters. The projectiles maintain lethal velocity for the first 200 meters of flight." Commander HFY felt his confidence wavering. "But surely our armor systems would easily deflect such primitive projectiles?" Salek hesitated. "That's uncertain. Our simulations suggest the kinetic energy transfer might be more problematic than anticipated. The projectiles are solid, dense, and traveling at high velocity. They would impact with significant force concentrated on a very small surface area." Admiral Court-Th stood, his massive frame casting shadows across the chamber. "What about their training regiments? How do they achieve such proficiency with these weapons?" This is perhaps the most disturbing aspect of our intelligence, Sulek replied. They begin training with these weapons as children. Some start as young as 4 or 5 years old. By adulthood, many have spent decades perfecting their technique. They practice for hours every day, developing muscle memory and precision that borders on supernatural. The agent activated another set of recordings, showing human children learning to swing the implements. Even at young ages, they displayed remarkable coordination and power generation. They also engage in group combat scenarios, Sulek continued. Teams of 9 individuals position themselves across large areas, working together to defend territory and attack opponents using these weapons. They call it baseball. The tactical complexity is impressive. General Brixton's insectoid eyes focused intently on the displays. Show us their error rates. Sulek pulled up statistical data. Professional operators achieve successful strikes approximately 30% of the time against moving targets. However, when engaging stationary targets, success rates exceed 90%. Stationary targets, Commander Zexhai repeated slowly, like soldiers in formation. Precisely. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. The implications were becoming clear to everyone present. Counselor Vexera broke the silence. What's their maximum effective range against armored targets? Unknown. We haven't been able to test their weapons against our materials. However, analysis of the kinetic energy they generate suggests it could be problematic. Admiral Court-TH activated his own display console. Computer, calculate kinetic energy of a 145-gram projectile traveling at 200 kilometers per hour. The chamber's main computer responded in its neutral tone. Kinetic energy equals approximately 786 joules. Now calculate the force of impact concentrated on a sphere with a diameter of 7 centimeters. Impact pressure would exceed 11,000 pascals per square centimeter. The Admiral's crystalline features darkened. That's enough to penetrate standard infantry armor plating. General Brixton's mandibles began clicking rapidly again, but this time with nervous energy rather than amusement. What about the weapons themselves? Surely they're fragile? Cannot withstand significant stress. Sulek shook his head. Our analysis indicates they've optimized the materials through generations of refinement. They use specific wood types with optimal grain structure. Some variants incorporate composite materials. The weapons are surprisingly durable. They can withstand impacts that would shatter conventional materials. How many of these weapons do they possess? Counselor Vexera inquired. Conservative estimates suggest every human settlement has access to hundreds or thousands of these implements. They're manufactured widely and cheaply. Some humans own multiple variants for different purposes. Commander Zexhai felt his forestomachs churning. You're telling us that every human civilian is potentially armed with a weapon capable of penetrating our armor? It appears so, Commander. The chamber erupted in concerned chatter as representatives began discussing the implications in their native languages. The simple wooden stick that had seemed so laughable minutes earlier now appeared in a very different light. Admiral Court-TH raised his hand for silence. What about their physical capabilities when wielding these weapons? Earlier reports suggested humans were weak and slow. Sulek activated more footage, this time showing professional human athletes in action. We may have underestimated their biomechanics. When properly motivated and trained, humans can generate remarkable power through rotational motion. They use their entire body as a kinetic chain, transferring energy from their legs through their torso to their arms and, finally, to the weapon. The footage showed humans twisting their bodies with violent precision, their muscles coiling and releasing like organic springs. The wooden weapons became extensions of their bodies, multiplying their strength through leverage and technique. Notice the precision, Sulek pointed out. They can strike moving targets consistently while generating maximum force. This isn't brute strength, it's refined technique combined with remarkable hand-eye coordination. General Brixton leaned back in his seat. What's their accuracy against moving targets? Professional operators can strike objects moving at speeds up to 160 kilometers per hour. The timing precision required is measured in milliseconds. Few of our own species could match such reflexes. Counselor Vexera's serpentine form shifted uneasily. Have we observed any modifications to these weapons? Yes, Select replied grimly. Some variants incorporate metal cores for increased mass. Others feature textured surfaces for improved grip. We've observed weighted versions for training that develop even greater strength. Most concerning, they've developed projectiles specifically designed for maximum damage, some with rough surfaces that create irregular flight patterns, others with modified densities for specific ranges. The chamber fell silent again as the implications sank in. What had seemed like a primitive species wielding crude weapons was revealing itself to be something far more sophisticated. Admiral Cortege spoke carefully. Agent Select, what's your professional assessment of the threat level? Select paused, reviewing his data one final time. Based on observed capabilities, widespread availability, extensive training regimens, and demonstrated effectiveness, I classify human baseball bat weaponry as a code orange threat, moderate to high danger requiring immediate strategic consideration. The gasps of shock echoed through the chamber. Code orange threats were reserved for species with advanced military technology and proven combat effectiveness. Commander Zexhai felt his confidence completely evaporating. Recommendations? We need to conduct field tests immediately. We need to understand exactly what these weapons can do against our materials and personnel. We also need to assess their tactical deployment capabilities and develop appropriate countermeasures. Counselor Vexera coiled herself more tightly around her seat. And if they prove as dangerous as these preliminary assessments suggest? Sullek's blue-tinted skin darkened. Then, we're facing a species where every civilian is armed with a weapon capable of threatening our forces. Where children train from birth to use these weapons with precision and power. Where the technology is so simple and widespread that eliminating their weapons capability would be virtually impossible. General Brixton's mandibles clicked slowly. A species of warriors disguised as primitives. It appears so, General. The chamber buzzed with worried conversation as the reality of the situation became clear. The species they had planned to easily conquer might be far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Admiral Cortege stood slowly, his crystalline form catching the light ominously. This meeting is classified at the highest levels. I want full combat simulations run immediately. I want materials testing against their projectiles. I want tactical assessments of their group combat scenarios. And I want contingency plans for facing an enemy where every individual is a trained weapons specialist. As the council members filed out in troubled silence, the holographic image of the simple wooden bat remained glowing in the center of the chamber. What had seemed like the galaxy's dumbest weapon was beginning to look like something else entirely. Something terrifying. 3 days after the emergency council meeting, Admiral Cortege stood in the testing facility's observation deck, watching his best combat engineers prepare for the most unusual weapons test in galactic military history. Below them, a regulation human baseball bat sat innocuously on a pedestal, surrounded by the most advanced analysis equipment the galactic military possessed. Dr. Nixera, the facility's chief materials scientist, adjusted her multispectral analyzers with her delicate manipulator arms. Her vegan heritage gave her natural precision with complex machinery, but even she seemed nervous about this particular assignment. Admiral, she reported. Initial scans confirm the weapon's composition. It's primarily organic cellulose arranged in a specific grain pattern. The density is surprisingly uniform, with natural compression lines that actually strengthen the overall structure. How does it compare to standard melee weapons? Admiral Cortege asked. That's where it gets interesting, Dr. Nixera replied, pulling up comparative holographs. Most civilized species abandoned physical weapons millennia ago. Our historical records show that advanced civilizations typically developed energy weapons once they achieved space flight. But this, she gestured at the bat. This represents something different entirely. General Brixton scuttled closer to the observation window, his compound eyes reflecting the testing chamber's harsh lighting. Different how? It's optimized, Dr. Nixera explained. Every aspect of its design serves a specific purpose. The length provides leverage. The weight distribution maximizes kinetic energy transfer. The handle diameter is sized for optimal grip by human hands. The wood type is selected for durability and flex characteristics. This isn't a primitive tool, it's an evolved killing implement. Commander Zexhai joined them at the observation window, his four arms crossed in obvious discomfort. Evolution implies continuous improvement over time. How long have humans been developing these weapons? Agent Select consulted his intelligence files. Archaeological evidence suggests humanoids have been using similar implements for over 50,000 years. The modern design has been refined for approximately 200 years. 200 years of continuous improvement on the same basic weapon, Admiral Kortich mused. That's longer than most species spend developing their entire military doctrine. Dr. Nixera activated the first test sequence. A mechanical arm lifted the bat and positioned it near a standard infantry armor plate. Beginning impact simulation. The mechanical striker will replicate human swing dynamics based on our biomechanical analysis. The mechanical arm moved with fluid precision, accelerating the bat through a perfect swing arc. The wooden weapon struck the armor plate with a sharp crack that echoed through the chamber. The results appeared instantly on the holographic displays. Dr. Nixera stared at the readings in disbelief. Impossible, she whispered. What is it? General Brixton demanded. The armor plate, it's cracked. Not just surface damage, structural failure along stress lines. Dr. Nixera ran the test again, adjusting parameters. The second impact produced similar results. This shouldn't be possible. The kinetic energy transfer is exceeding theoretical maximums. Admiral Kortich leaned forward. Explain. When most weapons strike armor, energy disperses across the impact area. But this bat, it focuses the entire kinetic force into a very specific point while maintaining structural integrity throughout the impact. It's like the weapon was designed specifically to defeat armor systems. Agent Select activated his personal display. Perhaps it was. Human historical records show they've used similar weapons against armored opponents for millennia. They've fought creatures called bears, wolves, and each other. Natural selection would favor designs that could penetrate protective barriers. Dr. Nixera initiated the projectile tests. The mechanical arm swung the bat toward a small white sphere, replicating the human baseball scenario they'd observed. The impact launched the sphere across the testing chamber at tremendous velocity. Velocity, 215 kilometers per hour, she reported. Trajectory stable. Impact force. She paused, rechecking her instruments. Impact force against a humanoid target would cause severe internal trauma. Against lighter species, it would likely be fatal. General Brixton's mandibles clicked rapidly. Tested against a Centaurian combat dummy. The technicians quickly set up the target, a life-sized representation of Agent Select species. The mechanical arm launched another sphere toward the dummy's center mass. The impact produced a sickening crack as the dummy's torso crumpled. Total structural failure of the ribcage analog, Dr. Nixera reported quietly. The projectile maintained lethal velocity after penetrating the outer shell. Commander Zexhai felt his stomach churning again. What about our species? Tested against a Catharian combat dummy. The technicians complied, setting up a dummy representing Zexhai's people. The result was even more devastating. The projectile shattered the dummy's armored carapace and embedded itself deep in the internal structure. This is impossible, General Brixton insisted. They're using wooden sticks and small spheres. How can primitive materials generate such destructive force? Dr. Nixera began analyzing the slow-motion recordings. It's the technique, she said suddenly. Look at the impact dynamics. The bat doesn't just strike the projectile. It accelerates it through several centimeters of contact. The human swing provides continuous force application, multiplying the energy transfer. Admiral Kortich studied the footage carefully. Show me the human biomechanical analysis again. Agent Select projected the data they'd gathered from observing human athletes. Human physiology allows them to generate rotational force using their entire body. They plant their feet for stability, rotate their hips for power, engage their core muscles for transfer, and snap their arms for final acceleration. It's a kinetic chain that multiplies their natural strength by a factor of 6 or 7. And they train this motion from childhood, Commander Zexhai added grimly. Precisely. By adulthood, the motion is completely automatic. They can execute it under stress, while moving, even while injured. It's become instinctive. Dr. Nixera ran additional tests. adjusting the mechanical arm to replicate different human swing styles. There's more. They've developed multiple techniques for different situations. Power swings for maximum distance. Contact swings for accuracy. Defensive swings for quick response. Each technique optimizes different aspects of the weapon system. Admiral Court watched the tests with growing unease. Each simulation revealed new levels of sophistication in what had appeared to be a primitive weapon system. Dr. Nixera, he said slowly, in your professional opinion, how would our standard infantry fare against humans armed with these weapons? The vegan scientist paused her testing and considered carefully. Admiral, our infantry armor is designed to deflect energy weapons and resist projectiles traveling at hypersonic velocities. It's not optimized for kinetic impacts at the energy levels these weapons generate. The focused force application could potentially penetrate or disable armor systems. Could potentially? Would likely penetrate armor systems, she corrected. Our simulations suggest a 70% probability of armor failure against skilled human operators. General Brixton scuttled closer to the observation window. What about our physical advantages? We're larger, stronger, more durable than humans. Dr. Nixera activated a new series of tests. Size might actually work against us. These weapons are optimized for striking specific target zones: head, torso, joints. Larger targets would be easier to hit accurately. And the kinetic force calculations don't change based on our size. A lethal impact remains lethal regardless of the target's mass. Agent Sulek highlighted additional intelligence data. We've also observed humans using these weapons in confined spaces. Corridors, vehicles, enclosed structures. They've adapted their techniques for close-quarters combat. Some variants are specifically designed for limited space engagements. The testing continued for hours, each experiment revealing new aspects of human weapon sophistication. They tested different projectile weights, various swing speeds, multiple impact angles. Every test confirmed the same disturbing conclusion. The simple wooden bat was far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Commander Zexhai activated his communication device. I need to speak with High Command immediately. While the commander made his urgent report, Dr. Nixera ran one final test. She programmed the mechanical arm to replicate the swing of a trained human child, approximately 12 years old based on their intelligence data. The results were sobering. Even a human child could generate enough force to cause serious injury to an adult galactic military trooper. Admiral, Dr. Nixera called out. There's something else you need to see. She displayed comparative analysis charts showing human weapon development over time. These aren't just weapons, they're part of an integrated system. Humans have developed specific training regimens, specialized equipment, performance enhancement techniques, and tactical doctrines. This represents a comprehensive military technology that's been refined for generations. Admiral Court studied the data with a growing sense of dread. Agent Sulek, what percentage of the human population has access to these weapons? Conservative estimates suggest over 80%, Admiral. They're manufactured commercially and are considered recreational equipment. Most human settlements have dedicated facilities for training with these weapons. Training facilities? Large open areas where hundreds of humans practice simultaneously. They call them ballparks and batting cages. Some are enormous, capable of accommodating tens of thousands of spectators who watch combat demonstrations. General Brixton's compound eyes dilated with shock. You're describing a militarized society where weapon training is public entertainment. It appears so, General. Dr. Nixera completed her final analysis. Admiral, based on our testing, I must formally recommend upgrading the threat assessment. These weapons represent a clear and present danger to galactic military personnel. Admiral Court stood slowly, his crystalline form reflecting the harsh laboratory lights. Dr. Nixera, prepare a full technical report for immediate distribution to all military commanders. Include weapon specifications, tactical capabilities, and recommended countermeasures. Yes, Admiral. But, sir, I'm not sure what countermeasures would be effective. These weapons are simple, durable, widely distributed, and operated by a population with extensive training. Traditional military doctrine doesn't address this type of threat. The Admiral paused at the observation deck exit. Then, we'll have to develop new doctrine. Because if these test results are accurate, we're not facing a primitive species with crude weapons. We're facing a civilization that's spent millennia perfecting the art of kinetic warfare. As the senior staff filed out of the testing facility, the simple wooden bat remained on its pedestal, surrounded by shattered armor fragments and destroyed combat dummies. The galaxy's dumbest weapon had just proven it might be the smartest weapon of all. In the distance, Commander Zexhi's urgent communication with High Command could be heard echoing through the corridors. "Sir, we need to completely reassess the human threat level. What we're dealing with here, it's unlike anything we've encountered before." High Commander Vexthal stood in the war room aboard the flagship Destroyer of Worlds, studying the holographic representation of the Sol system. His 8 tentacles moved with nervous energy as he reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The simple wooden weapon rotating slowly in the hologram's center seemed to mock the assembled military leadership of the Galactic Empire. "Gentlemen," he announced to the gathered fleet commanders, "we have a problem." Fleet Admiral Zaxera, her chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the war room's lighting, leaned forward in her command chair. "High Commander, surely you're not suggesting we alter our invasion plans because of primitive wooden clubs?" High Commander Vexthal's tentacles darkened to a deep purple, a sign of extreme agitation among his species. "Admiral, the testing results from our military research facility suggest these primitive wooden clubs represent a threat level we've never encountered." Dr. Nixera's report makes for disturbing reading. He activated the central display, showing footage of the recent weapons tests. The assembled commanders watched in stunned silence as the simple bat repeatedly defeated their most advanced armor systems. "This has to be an error," insisted General Crixon, his crystalline spikes bristling with indignation. "Our forces have conquered 47 star systems. We've defeated species with plasma cannons, molecular disruptors, and quantum destabilizers. A wooden stick cannot possibly threaten the Galactic Empire." "That's what we all thought," High Commander Vexthal replied grimly, "until we realized what we're actually facing." Agent Sulek stepped forward, his blue-tinted skin reflecting the holographic displays. "High Command, with permission, I'd like to present additional intelligence we've gathered about human military capabilities." "Proceed," Vexthal ordered. Sulek activated his personal holopad, displaying new footage from Earth. "We've been monitoring human military training facilities. What we've discovered is unprecedented." The display showed human soldiers in combat gear, but instead of energy weapons, they carried various types of wooden and metal bats. The soldiers moved through complex training scenarios, demonstrating remarkable coordination and skill. "These aren't civilians with recreational equipment," Sulek explained. "These are professional warriors who've integrated these weapons into their military doctrine. Watch their tactical formations." The footage showed squads of human soldiers moving through urban environments, using their bat-like weapons to clear obstacles, disable enemy positions, and engage targets with devastating efficiency. Their movements were fluid, coordinated, and utterly lethal. Fleet Admiral Zaxera's compound eyes focused intently on the display. "Are you telling us that human military forces have abandoned advanced weaponry in favor of these clubs?" "Not abandoned," Sulek corrected. "Integrated. They use these weapons alongside their conventional armaments. But here's the critical point. Every human soldier is trained to expert level with these implements. It's not optional equipment. It's standard issue." General Crixon's spikes retracted slightly. "Show us their training regiments." Sulek complied, displaying footage from human military academies. Young soldiers spent hours each day perfecting their technique with various weapon configurations. They practiced against moving targets, stationary objectives, and simulated alien anatomies. They trained for scenarios specifically involving non-human opponents, Sulek reported. Different species require different strike zones and techniques. They've studied our anatomy and developed specialized tactics for each major galactic species. A heavy silence fell over the war room. The implications were becoming clear to everyone present. High Commander Vexthal activated additional displays showing human population statistics. "According to our intelligence, Earth has approximately 8 billion inhabitants. If even 10% have military-level training with these weapons, we're looking at 800 million potential combatants. 800 million warriors, Fleet Admiral Xera said slowly, each armed with weapons that can penetrate our armor. It gets worse, Agent Sulek continued. We've discovered that humans have developed specialized variants for space combat. Lighter weapons for zero-gravity environments. Weapons with magnetic properties for use in metallic ship corridors. Collapsible versions for storage in confined spaces. The holographic display updated to show these variations. Each weapon was clearly designed by engineers who understood the specific challenges of different combat environments. General Crixon leaned back in his command chair. What about their industrial capacity? How quickly can they manufacture these weapons? That's perhaps the most disturbing aspect, Sulek replied. The basic design requires minimal technology to produce. Any human settlement with access to organic materials can manufacture effective weapons within days. They've decentralized the production system to make it virtually impossible to eliminate their weapons capability. High Commander Vexthal's tentacles writhed with agitation. You're describing a species where the entire population can be armed within weeks using locally available materials. Precisely, High Commander. Fleet Admiral Xera activated her own tactical displays. What about our numerical advantages? The Empire commands fleets with millions of soldiers. Agent Sulek hesitated before responding. Admiral, our force projection doctrine assumes technological superiority. We deploy relatively small numbers of highly advanced troops supported by energy weapons and defensive systems against an enemy where every individual poses a legitimate threat to our soldiers. Our numerical advantage disappears. General Crixon finished grimly. Worse than that, Sulek continued. Human tactical doctrine appears to be based on asymmetric warfare. They've studied our deployment patterns and developed countermeasures specifically designed to exploit our vulnerabilities. The display showed human tactical manuals with detailed analysis of Galactic Empire military procedures. The humans had identified weaknesses in standard formations, gaps in armor coverage, and limitations in equipment design. They know how we fight, High Commander Vexthal observed. And they've prepared accordingly. Yes, sir. But there's more. We've discovered that humans have been preparing for contact with alien species for decades. They have entire military units dedicated to extraterrestrial combat scenarios. The war room fell silent again. The assembled commanders were beginning to understand the magnitude of the challenge they faced. Fleet Admiral Xera broke the silence. Agent Sulek, what's your assessment of their defensive capabilities? Sulek pulled up new intelligence data. Every human settlement we've observed has distributed weapon stockpiles. They don't rely on centralized armories. Weapons are stored in individual homes, community centers, and emergency caches throughout their territories. Eliminating their weapons capability would require complete planetary occupation and systematic searches of billions of locations. Impossible, General Crixon muttered. Additionally, Sulek continued, they've developed rapid training programs that can bring civilians to combat readiness within weeks. Their entire population represents a potential reserve military force. High Commander Vexthal studied the tactical projections with growing unease. What about their command structure? Surely we can disrupt their military leadership? That's another problem, sir. Human military doctrine emphasizes independent operation and distributed command. Individual units can operate effectively without central coordination. Even civilian populations show remarkable ability to organize resistance efforts without formal military support. The holographic displays updated to show human historical examples, guerrilla warfare, resistance movements, and civilian defense forces that had continued fighting even after conventional military defeat. They're not just warriors, Fleet Admiral Xera realized. They're survivors. Yes, Admiral. Evolutionary pressure has selected for resilience, adaptability, and determination. Humans don't surrender easily, and they're extremely difficult to pacify through conventional occupation tactics. General Crixon activated his communication systems. I'm requesting immediate consultation with our strategic planning division. We need new tactical doctrines for this threat profile. High Commander Vexthal nodded grimly. Agreed. But there's something else we need to consider. Agent Sulek, what's your assessment of human technological development? Sulek's skin darkened with concern. High Commander, that may be our most serious oversight. We've been so focused on their primitive weapons that we've ignored their advanced technology. Humans have developed remarkably sophisticated engineering capabilities. Explain. They've achieved faster-than-light communication, advanced materials science, and complex manufacturing systems. They possess the technological base to develop conventional energy weapons if they choose to. The fact that they continue to emphasize these kinetic weapons suggests deliberate strategic choice, not technological limitation. The implications hit the war room like a physical blow. The humans weren't using wooden bats because they couldn't build energy weapons. They were using them because they worked better. Fleet Admiral ZYX stood slowly, her chitinous frame reflecting the holographic light. You're suggesting they've analyzed galactic military technology and determined that primitive kinetic weapons are superior? The evidence supports that conclusion, Admiral. High Commander Vexthal's tentacles coiled tightly around his command console. Computer, display comparative analysis of kinetic versus energy weapons in ship-to-ship combat scenarios. The war room's main computer complied, showing tactical simulations. The results were disturbing. In confined spaces like ship corridors, kinetic weapons had significant advantages. They couldn't be disrupted by electronic countermeasures. They didn't require power sources. They were completely silent. And they were devastatingly effective against personnel. They've developed the perfect boarding weapon, General Crixon realized. Something that can't be jammed, detected, or neutralized by our standard defensive systems. Agent Select nodded. And they've trained billions of people to use it with expert precision. High Commander Vexthal deactivated the displays and turned to face his commanders. Gentlemen, I'm declaring a strategic planning emergency. We need to completely reassess our invasion timeline and tactical approach. What we're facing isn't a primitive species with crude weapons. It's a sophisticated military civilization that's deliberately chosen to specialize in the one type of warfare we're least prepared to counter. Recommendations? Fleet Admiral ZYX asked. First, immediate development of countermeasures for kinetic weapons. Second, complete revision of our boarding and occupation protocols. Third, assessment of alternative conquest strategies that don't require direct infantry engagement. General Crixon's spikes extended fully. High Commander, are you suggesting we avoid ground combat entirely? I'm suggesting that until we develop effective countermeasures, engaging humans in close combat would be tantamount to military suicide. The war room buzzed with urgent activity as commanders began implementing the new protocols. What had begun as a routine planetary conquest was transforming into the most challenging military campaign in Galactic Empire history. And at the center of it all was a simple wooden bat, the galaxy's dumbest weapon that had proven smarter than the species that wielded it. Captain Sarah Chun stood in the observation deck of the Earth Defense Station, watching the massive alien fleet approach through the outer solar system. The ships were enormous, crystalline structures that seemed to bend light around their surfaces. Behind her, the Emergency War Council buzzed with urgent conversation. Estimated fleet strength? Asked General Harrison, his weathered face grim as he studied the tactical displays. Preliminary scans indicate 47 capital ships, each approximately 3 kilometers in length, reported Commander Martinez, her fingers dancing across the sensor controls. Escort vessels number in the hundreds. Total estimated crew, for million combatants. Admiral Thompson, the grizzled veteran who commanded Earth's space forces, whistled low. That's 10 times our entire military personnel. They're not taking any chances. Captain Chun turned away from the viewport, her hand instinctively resting on the specialized combat bat secured to her utility belt. Every soldier in Earth Defense Forces carried one. It had become standard issue after the first contact protocols were established 3 months ago. What's our intelligence assessment of their capabilities? She asked. Dr. Elizabeth Vance, the xenobiological specialist who'd been studying the intercepted alien communications, stepped forward. Based on their transmissions, they possess advanced energy weapons, sophisticated defensive systems, and technological capabilities far exceeding our own. However, there are some interesting anomalies in their tactical planning, such as, General Harrison inquired. They appear to be taking extraordinary precautions for what they consider a primitive species. Their fleet deployment suggests they're expecting significant resistance. The communication intercepts indicate genuine concern about our kinetic weapons systems. Admiral Thompson leaned forward. They're afraid of our bats. More than afraid, Dr. Vance replied. They seem to consider them a legitimate military threat. We've intercepted tactical assessments comparing our weapons to their most advanced armaments. Captain Chen felt a surge of pride mixed with disbelief. Doctor, are you saying they think our wooden bats are as dangerous as plasma cannons? Based on their communications, they may consider them more dangerous. Their tactical doctrine appears built around energy weapon engagements at extreme range. Close-quarters combat seems to be completely absent from their military planning. General Harrison activated the strategic display, showing Earth's defensive positions. That gives us an advantage. Our entire military doctrine is built around adaptability and close engagement. The truth was more complex than the general acknowledged. Humanity's embrace of kinetic weapons hadn't been accidental. When the first alien probe had been detected 6 months ago, Earth scientists had immediately begun analyzing the technological signatures. What they discovered had prompted a complete revision of military strategy. The physics are actually in our favor, Dr. Vance continued. Their energy weapons require sophisticated targeting systems, power generation, and complex firing mechanisms. All of those can be disrupted. But a kinetic weapon, especially one operated by trained personnel, is nearly impossible to counter. Admiral Thompson studied the approaching fleet with calculating eyes. Their ships are designed for space combat, long-range engagement, energy weapons, technological warfare. But if we can get their troops into close quarters, every human soldier has been training with kinetic weapons since childhood, Captain Chen added. Baseball, cricket, hockey, we've been preparing for this type of combat our entire lives without knowing it. The irony wasn't lost on anyone present. Humanity's recreational activities had inadvertently created the most effective anti-alien military training program in galactic history. Commander Martinez looked up from her sensor station. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the alien fleet. They're requesting communication. Put it through, Admiral Thompson ordered. The main display shimmered and resolved into the image of an imposing alien figure with multiple tentacles and what appeared to be crystalline skin. Behind him, other alien forms were visible, insectoid creatures, serpentine beings, and others that defied easy description. Inhabitants of the third planet. The creature spoke through their translation systems. I am High Commander Vexthal of the Galactic Empire. Your species has been selected for integration into our civilization. Surrender now, and your transition will be peaceful. Admiral Thompson stepped forward. High Commander, this is Admiral Thompson of Earth Defense Forces. We appreciate your offer, but we decline. Earth will remain independent. High Commander Vexthal's tentacles writhed with what might have been amusement. Admiral, you misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. Our forces are vastly superior to your primitive military. Resistance is futile. With respect, High Commander, Captain Chen interjected. I think you may have misunderstood something about human military capabilities. Enlighten me, Vexthal replied. Captain Chen drew her combat bat, holding it casually but with obvious familiarity. The alien's reaction was immediate and dramatic. His tentacles recoiled, and urgent conversation erupted among the alien figures behind him. This is a standard-issue human kinetic weapon, Chen explained calmly. Every soldier in Earth Defense Forces carries one. Most civilians own several. We begin training with these weapons as children, and we continue practicing throughout our lives. High Commander Vexthal's image flickered as he conferred rapidly with his staff. When he returned his attention to the transmission, his demeanor had changed completely. Human female, he said carefully. Are you threatening us with recreational equipment? General Harrison stepped into view, also drawing his combat bat. High Commander, we're not threatening you. We're showing you what every human considers normal equipment. Would you like to see our actual military-grade weapons? Dr. Vance activated a secondary display, showing footage of human special forces training. Soldiers moved through complex scenarios with fluid precision, using advanced kinetic weapons to eliminate targets with devastating efficiency. The alien reaction was immediate and visible. Several of the creatures actually backed away from their own displays. Those are our elite forces, Admiral Thompson explained. But the basic principles are the same. Every human you encounter will be armed and trained to use kinetic weapons with expert precision. High Commander Vexthal's tentacles had darkened to a deep purple. Admiral, our intelligence suggests your species lacks advanced military technology. Yet you speak as if your primitive weapons pose a threat to our forces. Primitive? Captain Chen asked. High Commander, these weapons represent 10,000 years of continuous refinement. They're manufactured to precision tolerances using advanced materials science. They're tested against every known defensive system. And they're operated by individuals with decades of training. Commander Martinez pulled up additional displays showing human military production facilities. Factories that could produce millions of weapons per day using locally available materials. Training centers where civilians achieved professional-level proficiency within weeks. Every human settlement has weapon stockpiles and training facilities, she reported. Our industrial capacity can arm the entire planetary population within 30 days. The alien leadership was conferring frantically among themselves. Captain Chun could see the uncertainty spreading through their ranks as they reassessed their intelligence. High Commander, Dr. Vance added, our analysis of your force composition suggests you're equipped for long-range energy weapon engagements. Your soldiers appear to lack training for close-quarters combat. Is that accurate? The pause before Vexthal responded told them everything they needed to know. Our forces are adequately prepared for all combat scenarios, he said unconvincingly. Admiral Thompson smiled grimly. With respect, High Commander, we've been monitoring your communications. We know you've classified our weapons as a significant threat. We know you've requested tactical doctrine revisions. And we know you've delayed your invasion to develop countermeasures. You speak as if you have some advantage, Vexthal replied. But his confidence was clearly shaken. We do, Captain Chen said simply. High Commander, your forces are technologically superior. Your ships are larger. Your weapons are more advanced. But you've never faced an enemy where every individual is trained from childhood to excel at close-quarters combat. General Harrison activated the final display, real-time footage from Earth's major cities. Millions of humans going about their daily activities, but each one carrying kinetic weapons as casually as other species might carry communication devices. This is our capital city, he explained. 20 million inhabitants. Every one of them armed and trained. Your invasion force has 4 million soldiers. The odds are not in your favor. High Commander Vexthal stared at the displays with visible shock. Your entire population is militarized. Not militarized, Dr. Vance corrected. Prepared. Humans have always lived in dangerous environments. We've evolved to be adaptable, resourceful, and determined. What you're seeing is normal for our species. The alien commander was silent for long moments, clearly processing the implications. When he spoke again, his voice had lost all trace of confidence. Admiral Thompson, perhaps we should discuss alternative arrangements. You mean negotiations rather than conquest? Admiral Thompson asked. Yes, negotiations. Captain Chun exchanged glances with her colleagues. The galaxy's most powerful military force had just backed down from invading Earth because they were afraid of wooden bats. High Commander, Admiral Thompson said formally, Earth is prepared to discuss diplomatic relations with the Galactic Empire. However, any agreement must recognize our sovereignty and independence. Agreed, Vexthal replied quickly. We shall withdraw our fleet and prepare diplomatic proposals. One more thing, Captain Chen added. High Commander, we're curious about something. How many other species in the galaxy use kinetic weapons? None, Vexthal admitted. Advanced civilizations abandon such primitive implements once they develop energy weapons. Then, perhaps, Dr. Vance suggested, we have something to offer the galaxy after all. Earth would be willing to share our kinetic weapons technology with allies of the Galactic Empire. The alien commander's tentacles writhed with what could only be described as excitement. You would share your weapon designs? With friends? Absolutely, Admiral Thompson replied. After all, everyone should have access to the galaxy's most effective military technology. As the transmission ended and the massive alien fleet began withdrawing from the solar system, Captain Chen couldn't help but smile. Humanity had just avoided invasion and established themselves as a galactic military power. all because aliens were terrified of baseball bats. The galaxy's dumbest weapon had just proven to be humanity's smartest diplomatic tool. 6 months after first contact, the galactic trade station orbiting Proxima Centauri had become the most unlikely military academy in known space. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in the main training hall, watching a mixed group of alien species awkwardly attempting to master the fundamentals of human kinetic weapons training. "Remember," she called out to the assembled students, "the power comes from your entire body, not just your arms. Think of it as a kinetic chain: legs, hips, core, shoulders, arms." A towering Rigelian named Corth raised one of his massive crystalline hands. His species' natural armor made him nearly invulnerable to energy weapons, but even he struggled with the basic concepts of bat handling. "Ambassador Vasquez," he rumbled in his deep voice, "my species has 4 primary manipulator appendages. Should I use all of them?" Elena considered the question carefully. The adaptation of human kinetic weapons for non-human physiology had proven to be one of the most complex challenges of the cultural exchange program. "Let's try a modified grip," she suggested. "Use your lower arms for stability and power generation, upper arms for precision and control. Dr. Chun, could you demonstrate the physics?" Dr. Michael Chun, formerly of Earth Defense Forces and now the galaxy's leading expert in cross-species kinetic weapons training, stepped forward. He'd been working with alien engineers to develop customized weapon designs for different species anatomies. "The key principle remains the same," he explained to the gathered students. "Maximum kinetic energy transfer through optimized technique. But each species needs to adapt the basic concepts to their unique physiology." The training hall buzzed with activity as representatives from 17 different species practiced their swings. Insectoid Catharians with their multiple joints created surprisingly fluid motions. Serpentine vegans used their flexible spines to generate tremendous rotational force. Even the energy-based plasmic entities had developed techniques using solid matter manipulation fields. Captain Sarah Chun, now director of interspecies military cooperation, entered the training hall carrying a data pad full of the latest intelligence reports. The sight of dozens of alien species earnestly practicing with wooden bats still struck her as surreal. "How's the progress?" she asked Elena. "Better than expected," Elena replied. "The Rigelians are natural power hitters. Their crystalline structure allows them to generate enormous force. The Centaurians have the best hand-eye coordination I've ever seen. And the Catharians." She paused to watch a squad of insectoid soldiers executing a complex group training drill. "They've developed team tactics that are absolutely revolutionary." Captain Chin nodded, reviewing her reports. "The intelligence updates are equally interesting. 3 more species have formally requested admission to the Kinetic Weapons Alliance. The Andromedans want to establish a training facility in their home system. And the Galactic Empire has officially designated kinetic weapons as strategically essential technology." The irony of the situation wasn't lost on anyone involved. Humanity had joined the galactic community not as a conquered primitive species, but as the sole possessors of the most effective military technology in known space. "Any word from the Zeta Reticulans?" Elena asked. "That's actually the big news," Captain Chin replied, activating her data pad's holographic display. "They've developed something extraordinary." The hologram showed sleek, metallic weapons that clearly derived from human bat designs, but incorporated advanced alien technology. The weapons seemed to shimmer with internal energy patterns. "They've created kinetic weapons with variable density cores," Captain Chin explained. "The weight can be adjusted instantly for different combat scenarios. Light configuration for speed and accuracy, heavy configuration for maximum impact force." Dr. Chun examined the holographic schematics with obvious fascination. "The engineering is remarkable. They've solved the fundamental compromise between speed and power that's limited kinetic weapons for millennia." Elena watched her alien students continue their practice, noting the dramatic improvement in their techniques over the past few weeks. It's amazing how quickly they're adapting. Some of these species have been using energy weapons for thousands of years, yet they're embracing kinetic technology like it's the most natural thing in the galaxy. "Because it works," Captain Chin said simply. "Energy weapons can be jammed, deflected, or countered. But kinetic force applied by skilled operators? There's no defense against physics. Admiral Thompson's voice echoed through the training hall's communication system. All senior staff to the command center immediately. Priority, Alpha communication from Earth. The three humans made their way through the station's corridors, passing alien diplomats, military officers, and weapons technicians from dozens of species. The Galactic Trade Station had been hastily converted from a commercial facility to accommodate the unprecedented military cooperation program, and the corridors buzzed with constant activity. In the command center, Admiral Thompson stood before the main display, which showed a real-time communication link with Earth's military command. On screen, General Morrison looked grim. "Admiral, we have a situation," Morrison began without preamble. "Long-range sensors have detected a massive fleet approaching from the Andromeda Galaxy. Unknown configuration, estimated strength in the millions of vessels." Admiral Thompson leaned forward. "Hostile. Unknown. But their approach vector suggests they're not here for peaceful contact. Estimated arrival at the galactic perimeter, 72 hours. Captain Chun felt her stomach tighten. "General, what's the Galactic Empire's response?" "That's the problem," Morrison replied. "Their conventional forces are completely inadequate against a fleet this size. They're requesting immediate deployment of kinetic weapons specialists to all frontline positions." Elena Vasquez understood immediately. "They want human military advisors?" "More than that," Admiral Thompson said. "They want us to lead the defense." The weight of the responsibility settled over the room like a heavy blanket. 6 months ago, humanity had been an unknown species facing conquest by the Galactic Empire. Now they were being asked to defend the galaxy against an unknown threat. "What are our capabilities?" Dr. Chen asked. Captain Chun consulted her tactical assessments. "We have 12,000 human kinetic weapons specialists distributed across 47 star systems. Allied forces number approximately 2 million, all with basic kinetic weapons training. Production facilities on 18 worlds can manufacture weapons and ammunition for sustained combat operations. Against millions of enemy vessels," Elena observed grimly. "The numbers aren't the real problem," Admiral Thompson said. "The problem is deployment. We need to get kinetic weapons specialists to every major defensive position in the galaxy within 48 hours. General Morrison's image flickered as priority communications interrupted the link. When he returned, his expression was even more serious. "Admiral, we've received additional intelligence. The approaching fleet appears to be using technology similar to the Galactic Empire, energy weapons, defensive screens, long-range engagement systems. But there's something else." "Go ahead," Admiral Thompson ordered. "They've been monitoring our communications. They know about kinetic weapons technology. Intelligence suggests they're specifically equipped to counter energy weapon defenses, but may be unprepared for kinetic warfare." Dr. Chen looked up from his technical assessments. "General, are you suggesting this invasion fleet chose their timing based on their analysis of galactic military capabilities?" "It's possible. They may have observed that the galaxy relies entirely on energy weapons and planned their assault accordingly." Elena realized the implications immediately, but they don't know about the changes we've implemented. They're expecting to face the same energy weapon-dependent forces that have dominated the galaxy for millennia. "Exactly," General Morrison confirmed. "This could be our advantage." Admiral Thompson began issuing rapid orders. "Captain Chun, coordinate with Galactic Empire Command. I want kinetic weapons specialists deployed to every major defensive position. Dr. Chun, contact our alien allies. I want their most experienced kinetic warfare units ready for immediate deployment. Ambassador Vasquez, draft emergency protocols for accelerated training programs." As the command center erupted into urgent activity, Elena couldn't help but reflect on the extraordinary turn of events. Humanity had accidentally developed the galaxy's most effective military technology through recreational sports. They'd avoided conquest by demonstrating that technology to potential invaders. They'd established themselves as essential galactic allies by sharing that technology freely. And now they were being asked to save the galaxy using weapons their ancestors had carved from tree branches. Captain Chun received an urgent communication from High Commander Vexthul himself. The alien leader who had once planned to conquer Earth was now requesting human military assistance with obvious desperation. Captain Chun, Vexthal's image appeared on her personal communicator. We need immediate deployment of your kinetic weapon specialists. Our conventional defenses cannot stop this invasion force. Hi, Commander. We're already coordinating deployment schedules. Human advisors will be at every major defensive position within 36 hours. Captain, there's something else. Our intelligence indicates the enemy has specifically prepared to counter our traditional military doctrine. They're expecting energy weapon resistance. But your kinetic weapons will be completely unexpected, Captain Chen finished. Hi, Commander. We understand the tactical advantage. The question is whether we can deploy enough specialists to make a difference. Vexthal's tentacles writhed with agitation. Captain, the fate of 17 civilizations rests on wooden weapons wielded by a species we discovered 6 months ago. If someone had told me this scenario was possible, I would have had them examined for psychological instability. Hi, Commander. Elena interjected, joining the communication. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective. Your technology is sophisticated, but complexity creates vulnerabilities. Our kinetic weapons have one major advantage. They always work. As the command center coordinated humanity's first major military deployment beyond their home system, the irony of the situation became inescapable. The galaxy's dumbest weapon was about to become the galaxy's last hope. And, somewhere in the back of Elena's mind, she couldn't help but wonder what humanity's ancestors would think if they knew that the wooden clubs they'd used to hunt mammoths would one day save an entire galaxy from invasion. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor about the relationship between simplicity and sophistication. And humanity was about to prove that sometimes the oldest solutions were still the best solutions, even in the most advanced civilization in galactic history.